This is not a step-by-step guide to removing 4x4 transmissions and transfer cases. There are too many variations for that. This is from 40 years of teaching drive lines. There are problems students make that engineers can't imagine. These are industry standards and meant to improve safety and speed to make a living in the automatic transmission business. Follow these rules and you can't go wrong. First, we do in-cab checks. Place the automatic transmission in neutral, unlock the steering wheel. If necessary, remove the gear shift lever. For the transfer case, always roll the window down. I can't tell you how many times I've had to deal with keys locked inside the vehicle. Check under the hood. Disconnect the battery terminals. Check to make sure you have clearance between the distributor and the firewall on older models. The transmission will be hanging down and the distributor might get ruined by leaning against the firewall. You also must disconnect any transmission linkages that may go down to the transmission. You feel a little foolish having the entire transmission disassembled and hanging there and is dangling from the downshift linkage. For this demonstration, we'll be using a 7.3-liter Ford diesel. It has two batteries in it. You'll be required to remove the cable from both negative terminals of both batteries. Although not required on this vehicle, many people will disconnect the stub shaft from the yoke. If you do that, remember they've got to go back in the exact same position so they will remain in phase. Always wrap the universal joint with tape to prevent the trunnions from falling off, hitting the floor, and losing your needle bearings. This is the most important part of this presentation. Bolt the transmission to the transmission jack. If necessary, drill holes in the jack or burn holes in the jack with a torch. You're going to bolt the transmission jack to the transmission transfer case combination and take it out as a unit. There is no safer way of doing it, no faster way of doing it than to do it this way. I've done it this way for hundreds, perhaps thousands of transmissions. I've done it with at least a dozen different transmission jacks through my career, and it is the best way to remove this as a unit. Cooling lines twist, they get bound up, the sides get, the flare nuts get screwed up. Don't be in doubt, don't be bashful. Cut the cooling line in some place where it'll be easy to repair and repair it with the compression coupling. Remember, compression couplings can only be used on transmissions, fuel lines, not brake lines. Here it is, one solid piece, transfer case and transmission in one. This unit probably goes 400 or 500 pounds. It's mounted safely on the jack stand. It is not going to fall off. It is truly the only safe way to do it. When I remove each of the bolts from each section of the removal process, I gather them up and put them in a pie tin, as you can see here. Oftentimes I take these pie tins and I'll put cleaning fluid or solvent in the bottom of each one if the fasteners are completely dirty or rusty. Let them soak for a while I'm doing the rest of the removal. Here's a little tip that might be helpful for you during reinstallation. Install pilots on the engine housing to help guide the transmission in place. This isn't really necessary for most automatic transmission installs, but it's really helpful when you're dealing with manual transmissions. We have to line up the splines and the input shaft. Reinstall of the transmission isn't really a problem. Just do the opposite of what we did while removing it. One thing to be sure of is when you install the transmission on the back of the engine that you have clearance, referred to as the stab depth, between the flywheel and the torque converter. If you do not have some clearance prior to tightening up the torque converter, you may have binding. The torque converter may have slid forward. If you start the engine up, you will immediately destroy the front pump. Avoid that at all costs. Best of luck, and I hope you enjoyed this little video. These are tried and true tips to make your experience a lot safer and a lot easier to do. This removal takes about an hour, takes about another hour to put it back.